Hello everyone. Today I'd like to talk to you about introducing RFID into the events industry in a Draw My Lifestyle presentation. My name is Benjamin Jarman and I'm going to teach you about RFID. So, RFID, what the heck is it? Well, it stands for Radio Frequency Identification. And what radio frequency identification does is that it is a little microchip that contains certain components that help track and locate and find data to whatever or whoever is holding that little microchip. The first introduction of RFID, one of the first and definitely the most popular, was Disney. Disney was one of the first companies to introduce RFID. What they did is what you've probably seen if you've ever been to Disney World or ever read any articles or seen any news about it, is that they included these RFID transmitters into a little wristband that they would give to their visitors. It was a little wristband that you'd wear, and with Disney's theme of magic and it being the happiest place on earth, they said it was magic. Of course, investors and you know, typically the adult would know that these little RFID transmitters, which would only be about that big, and a wristband that would go across your entire wrist, it would have little Mickey ears, like you see. I'm not too good of a drawer, but it would have little Mickey ears, and it would light up whenever you would try to enter a park, enter a ride, and some of the other future future inventions that I'll discuss later. It would light up. Well, what it did was, instead of getting a paper ticket and taking it to your ride or your park or whatever restaurant you went to, instead you would hook up an account to this RFID transmitter, and that RFID transmitter would then become the visitor's ID. And Disney can do a lot with this. This was a big advancement in technology, especially with how large spread it was. Any guest that entered a Disney park was required to have one of these wristbands. It still is today. It's not a was, they are still required to have these RFID transmitters. It makes lines easier, it makes lines and machinery that requires an operator. You no longer need ticket clerks to check your ticket to make sure you are able to ride this ride, or bought the right ticket for this ride or amusement attraction. Everything that Disney needed to know is in this visitor's ID inside the RFID transmitter, which was inside every wristband. That would go on every single person's wrist. So, why did Disney do this? Well, of course, there were a couple reasons. One is ease of access. With Disney being such a large amusement park, especially talking about Walt Disney World, there are thousands upon thousands of guests each and every day, each taking up space, each wanting to ride the same rides. Well, if you had a paper ticket clerk taking each and every person's ticket, it would take a long time to make sure every ride had the right amount of people and everything like that. So it was an ease of access. It made lines a heck of a lot quicker. It also gave Disney access to deny for whatever reason. Let's say you got rambunctious in a park, created a bit of ruckus, and you were no longer able to visit any of Disney's theme parks. It was a quick denial of access because your little magic wristband was now blinking red instead of green, and you weren't able to get into a park. An operator would come out and say, I'm sorry, but you fought a guy in one of our parks, you can't come back. So that was another big reason. One of the biggest reasons, however, and something very, very useful to the entire Disney Corporation, is that it was a source of visitor data. Now, to anyone who isn't involved in a lot of free market businesses and a lot of customer-oriented establishments, is that visitor data, otherwise known as surveying, is one of the hardest elements to obtain when running a business. What your customers know, what your customers want, is some of the hardest things to get a hold of as a business. Well, the old way of doing things was that you would have surveyors, which of course cost money to pay for, or surveys being sent after business, which would sometimes get lost, so they were prone to being lost or just ignored. These were the only ways to get that vital source of information, was through surveyors, which cost a lot of money, and sometimes, it wouldn't work, and also surveys. Now, what RFID did was well, let's bring that back. RFID basically made the old way obsolete, because with this little transmitter came a radio responder, a transmitter, and GPS, or location. This was then sent to a reader device, then to the database. And in those very few steps, Disney now knew where each visitor was going through the GPS location, how much time they were spending at these locations, and it was all filed perfectly and efficiently in a database. You didn't need to send out surveys saying, well, where did you go? What place did you spend the most time at? How did you like this? How did you like that? Well, if a person went to Space Mountain 4 times in the day and they waited an hour each time, you could probably say Space Mountain is one of the biggest reasons why they go. And then furthermore, Disney innovated even further, and RFID, these little bracelets, the Disney bracelets, also had financial availability. Guests would be able to connect their credit cards, connect their debit cards, or any way they pay. They could put cash onto these little bracelets, and every time you went into a business or every time you went to a restaurant, you would simply put your wristband close to the POS system. A POS is the point of sale It's any digital cash register where a register has a screen. They're very, very common nowadays. But every time they went to a POS, they would scan their register or scan their wristband on the register, and the purchase was made. As easy as that. Magic. Well, in a clever way, Disney now had both location, time of visit, as well as how much money did that visitor spend. When they were visiting. These are some of the most crucial bits of data that a business could ever acquire on their customer base. It is things that people have sought after for years and years, especially in a theme park or tourism assessment. These are the most crucial bits of information you can ask that for your customer base. Let's talk about how RFID is morally. RFID, especially when it came to Disney, because Disney, everything was big, everything was looked upon, media went to it, and a lot of moral issues came out. And some of those moral and legal concerns was that some people may not want Disney to know their location at all times when they're in their parks. So that was a big legal concern, was privacy. And what Disney did about it was essentially nothing. Disney had invested millions, actually I think billions of dollars into this RFID technology. They cut costs in labor due to not having to survey, not having to pay certain operators that they would rely on without RFID. And these investors knew everything that was going on. So Disney basically asserted itself as the right to serve as a business, and said, if you are not willing to comply to our new magic wristbands, Universal Studios is down the street. So a lot of legal concern has been regarded with RFID, and it's kind of a case-by-case basis. Some events have RFID bans, not just Disney, but some events have RFID bans, or they have the option of you can hook up your phone as an RFID device, and it constantly surveys you. But usually it's you can if you want, you can if you don't, or you don't have to. But there are some businesses that hold to this RFID because, like previously stated, they've invested billions of dollars into this technology, and they now rely on it. So those are some of the legal concerns with RFID. So some of the main takeaways is this. RFID stands for radio frequency identification. Its big debut, or the big drop, was with Disney introducing it. It eliminates the need for physical surveying. And it has created some social unrest within some of the customers that host events that also have RFID, social concerns. But all in all, RFID is a great way for businesses to get surveying done without physical surveying. It also eases a lot of problems that happen within events, whether it's a lost wristband or you don't want to carry your wallet around. It helps businesses out a lot, and it makes the visit for the visitor extremely convenient.